Today, we're going to talk about something that's happening in millions of homes, especially if you live somewhere hot and humid. We're talking about the unseen battle, the constant war being waged against your air conditioner. And to really understand it, we're going to use the coastal community of Ruskin, Florida as our ground zero. You'll see how the very climate you live in can be the biggest enemy of your comfort.
Now, I know a war inside your walls sounds a little dramatic, right? But honestly, for your home's most important appliance, it's pretty much the truth. There is a constant, invisible fight happening right inside and outside your house, and your AC unit, it's stuck right on the front lines.
Okay, picture this. It's 95 degrees out, the air is so thick with humidity you can practically swim in it, and then silence. The cool air just stops, and the house immediately starts to feel like an oven. We've all had that nightmare, right? And your first thought is probably, wow, what terrible luck.
But what if I told you it wasn't just random bad luck? What if that dead AC unit was actually the latest casualty in a long, brutal war? A war against an enemy that it was just not built to fight forever.
So who is this mysterious enemy? Well, in a place like Ruskin, Florida, which is sitting right there on Tampa Bay, the enemy isn't just one thing. It's the whole climate. It's a relentless, three-pronged attack on your HVAC system day in and day out.
Let's break down this assault team, okay? First, you've got this intense humidity just rolling in off the Gulf. It forces your system to work overtime, pulling gallons and gallons of water out of the air. Then, you have the salt. That corrosive salt air drifts inland, and it literally starts eating away at the metal on your outdoor unit. And finally, there's just the plain old relentless heat, which means your AC is pretty much always running.
And just think about how long this battle lasts. You know, in a lot of the country, an AC gets a nice long vacation in the fall and winter. But down in coastal Florida, nope, it is on active duty for 8, 9, sometimes 10 months straight. And that kind of constant operation is what turns normal, everyday wear and tear into accelerated destruction.
So what happens when the system just can't take it anymore? Well, you start to see very specific, very common types of failures. These are the casualties of this climate war. Let's take a look at the 4 most common ways these systems go down.
First on the list, the corroded coil. That salt spray we talked about, it acts like an acid on the delicate aluminum fins of your outdoor unit. Over time, this corrosion builds up and it basically acts like an unwanted blanket, trapping heat in. The system can't breathe, so it has to work way harder, which burns more energy and leads to a much earlier death.
Next up is the clogged drain. Remember all that humidity? It turns into water, and that water has to drain somewhere. It flows out through a little pipe that can really easily get clogged up with algae and gunk. When that happens, the water has nowhere to go but back, and that often means into your attic or ceiling, causing thousands of dollars in water damage. It's a huge mess.
And the impact of that constant, nonstop use? You can really see it with the capacitor. Now, this is a small part, but it's what gives the fan and compressor the jolt they need to start up. In a milder climate, a capacitor might last a decade. But in the Florida heat, with the system kicking on and off all the time, it can get fried in just 3 to 5 years. It's a small part, but when it goes, the whole system goes with it.
And finally, there's the undersized system. This one's a strategic blunder, usually made by a builder trying to save a few bucks. They install an air conditioner that's just too small for the house, and the result? The poor thing runs constantly, 24/7, but never actually cools the place down. Your bills go through the roof, and the unit just burns itself out years before it should.
Okay, so the situation definitely sounds a bit grim. I get it. But you're not defenseless in this fight. When a system does fail, there's a very clear professional playbook for fighting back. It's all about calling in the right reinforcements.
And this counterattack is really systematic. It all starts with your call, where you explain what's going on. Then, a good technician comes out to do a real diagnosis, not just guessing, but actually testing things to find the real root of the problem. And this part is crucial. You get a clear, upfront price before they do any work. Once you give the okay, they do the repair, and then they test everything to make sure the system is back in fighting shape before they leave.
You know, this whole battle isn't just a complete free-for-all. It's actually governed by some pretty strict rules of engagement. We're talking about building codes and industry standards that are designed to make sure the equipment can actually survive the fight, and more importantly, to protect you, the homeowner.
So, one of the most important rules you need to know about is the SEER rating. The easiest way to think about it is like your car's miles per gallon rating. It just tells you how much cooling you get for every bit of electricity you pay for.
A higher SEER number means a more efficient system, and that difference can be huge. For someone in a hot climate, upgrading to a high-efficiency unit can literally save you hundreds of dollars on your power bills every year.
So what's the minimum standard? Well, in a place like Florida, the state's Energy Efficiency Code says that any new AC system has to have a minimum SEER rating of 14. That's the floor. It's a non-negotiable rule to make sure systems are at least reasonably equipped for the intense job they have to do.
Now here's a really practical rule of thumb you can use. It's sometimes called the $5,000 rule. It's pretty simple. You take the estimated cost of a repair and you multiply it by how old your system is in years. If that number is more than 5,000, it's a really strong sign that you're better off replacing the whole thing instead of just throwing more money at an old failing unit.
So, we've looked at the enemy, we've seen the casualties, and we've gone over the rules of engagement. What's the big takeaway from all of this? How do you actually defend your home from this non-stop attack?
Well, it really boils down to this 4-point survival guide. First, just understand the enemy. Know that heat, humidity, and salt are always on the attack. Second, learn to spot the casualties. Things like corrosion or a dripping drain line are big red flags. Third, know the rules. Make sure any system you have is efficient and, critically, the right size for your home. And, maybe most important of all, call for reinforcements before you have a disaster. Regular maintenance isn't a luxury. It's honestly the best defense you've got.
So, I'll just leave you with this question. Every single day, your air conditioner is out there fighting a battle to keep you and your family comfortable. And now that you know what it's up against, take a second to think about your own home. Do you have any idea who's winning the war inside your walls?